Good evening. This is New Year's Eve day, and I would be walking outside if it wasn't for the fact that there was a magnificent fog across the nearby mountain, and it's cold and rainy, and I am still trying to protect my eye, which is healing. I think it's healing well. I'll know on Tuesday when I go to see my ophthalmologist. But I thought it would be worthwhile to say something this day before the new year about what our resolutions must be for we the people, given what's going on in the nation and what disclosures we have and what we know. And we can't go forward with business as usual. So this New Year's Eve day began with a fog that obscured the Short Hill Mountains nearby. And it seems to me that more significantly and metaphorically, our national vision has been obscured. How do you measure your progress if you don't know what your objective is? I always reframe Aristotle, who basically said, nothing improves your aim like having a target. We need a target, standards by which we measure our conduct and the conduct of others. And our vision has been obscured, therefore, and it's reflected in our failure to do the hard things, the necessary things. I'll give you an example. We gaze deep into space to catch ancient images coming our way from the Big Bang in an ever-expanding universe. This is one of these miracles of the light years at which images are traveling through the ether that is space. And we seek to know whence we came. We are curious about the origin of the universe, but we hardly lift a finger at home to solve the problems close by. No question, the Webb telescope is an amazing scientific advance. It really is sensational. I mean, just even opening the thing in space at a remote distance is itself an achievement. But then to have it have the expanse to catch these images so that we can see what happened many, many years ago. Now, as a nation, we also have a plan to return to the moon and perhaps to Mars. Are we thinking of colonizing another planet? Really? Hopefully, we don't plan to mimic Matt Damon as an astronaut in the sci-fi that he did in 2011 for how he decided to survive on Mars. We talk about space travel like that's where we'll go, that is to the moon or to Mars, to establish another outer space Jamestown when this planet, Earth, is brought to ruins. Like so many other things, our so-called leaders are long on talk, apparently thinking we don't know that sound is no substitute for light, inspiration, and heroic action with consequences. These amazing scientific advances inform us that there's brilliance among us, amazing thinkers, doers. But there's also an expanse of ignorance indwelling among a troubled minority of voters that threaten us one and all. Jefferson, no less than Jefferson, said that a nation that expects to be ignorant and free expects what never was and never will be. And this is a hard lesson to learn, but we should have learned it by now. We've seen enough examples of it. We are living that challenge right now. And it's not a new challenge. It's happened before. Read Schlesinger and Hofstadter, great writers, if you want to see how they diagnosed this anti-intellectual bent that is not peculiar to America, but has been here in the past, and it's here right now. This is not the first time our nation has been challenged by not just anti-intellectual thinking, the know-nothings, mugwumps, the rebellious. We had that Civil War, remember that part? Bullies, antagonistic trust, wannabe dictators, McCarthyism, racists, delusional zealots, lies from the government, lies from politicians. You name it, we've had it. We can't afford to be slow to the mark, given that's what at risk presently is our democracy. This challenge may eclipse all past challenges. Other countries involved, the scope of the participants, of those who would prefer an autocracy over democracy. I recently reread portions of a favorite book of mine, 1968, written by an extraordinary journalist, Charles Kaiser, who saw through the chaos. And to borrow from Bob Dylan, he he made a record of those times when they were changing. We can learn lessons from that book and those times, and some of us lived through those times. We, the people, must challenge the rule of thumb world because our view of things as they are implies there has to be a better order. We must demand action from our leaders where there appears to be nothing but indolence and cowardice and bad motives and lies and corruption in our policies and in our elections. That's just not sufferable. We can't possibly have that. In the 60s, we watched our heroes gunned down. Jack, Bobby, Martin, and others maybe not so well known today, but known to us then. We are in the foothills of violence in politics again. We must stop this violence dead in its tracks. And we have heard about the threats and the coercion and so forth. We heard how people have been told they have to give a certain testimony. They try them with rewards and they try them with penalties. And these are only steps away from other things that can happen. We cannot be a nation like what is governed by a third world dictator. That's not acceptable. That is not our tradition. That is not our standard. That is not how we measure who we are and what we can do. All around us today, like then, we have leaders who think the test of the democracy after the midterms has passed. See, it was close. The Republicans didn't have the great red result that they expected. No, but are we safe? Or is this just a convenient bromide to avoid doing anything? We battled the midterm elections to a draw. That's where people draw this confidence that we don't have to worry anymore. But that's because voters, our friends and neighbors, we the people, are not quite so sure which party we can trust to lead us in the future. And that's why it's so close. If in fact we had proven that both the Republicans were in error and have no right to try to preserve and protect anything in America since they prefer autocracy, they go to the Democrats if they were confident with us. But we haven't met that test, and we have to meet that test in the future. We have to meet it in this new year for starters. We have almost daily disclosures of misconduct in high places, past and present, in the Oval Office, on the Hill, in the Supreme Court, and places in between and elsewhere. And the fingerprints in every one of these domains leaves a trail of destruction leading to Trump and his corrupt cohorts. Why don't we act upon these seditious acts and defend and protect our government? Good question. Why haven't we? And one of the reasons is you've heard commentators make the most Pollyannish forecast without a stitch of evidence to prove good times can possibly arise out of inaction when it comes to handling Trump. Now, some of these commentators are DOJ apologists. Maybe they don't understand that. I'm not saying they're doing it in bad faith, but they are wrong. Others are Republicans trying to limit Trump's exposure. Okay, let's not bar him from running for office. Let's censure him. Let's not indict him. We don't want to put the nation through that. What we are doing is we're putting the nation through a situation in which the enemy of the people, Trump, continues to work his worst kind of leadership on this nation, on those who would follow him, and therefore on the shape of our government when we need to do better than we are doing now. No matter how much we the people say we demand an accounting for the historic misconduct, our leaders apparently fear to go where Captain Kirk would boldly go, where no man has gone before. And, it's partly a joke, but no one has ever indicted a former president. And in this case, it's Trump. And it remains to be seen if Jack Smith, the special counsel, is Mueller too, meaning from the beginning, he doesn't intend to do anything. Now, I'm not prepared to prejudge him. But by now, we should be doing more than discovery 2 years after the event. What are we doing? We must indict, and I think this is our first resolution of the year. By the end of January, we should indict Trump for Georgia, all on tape, absolutely, and or taking and concealing classified files, another seemingly easy case because the documents are not where they're supposed to be, and we have statements and admissions by Trump, and we don't have problems about circumstantial evidence in either case, and we don't have trouble dealing with exceptions to the hearsay rule. If I say I did something, that's hearsay. But because I said I did it, it is considered reliable hearsay, and it's admissible at trial. And there have been people on the air talking about these things, and they have to know better. And if they don't know better, they shouldn't be talking about this stuff. They should be arrested for impersonating lawyers or civil rights lawyers. Now, consider we indicted a complex fraud case involving cybersecurities in weeks out of the Southern District of New York. But Trump has acted in full view 2 years ago. We've known the whole story from the moment it happened, and still we fiddle. Another new resolution, a second resolution, and it's a broader one. And the way I would describe it is we have to govern again. Our Congress and the executive branch has to govern, to represent the people, all the people, equal to each other, not just as errand boys for Wall Street and not at the expense of Main Street, and to help the middle class that makes this nation go in large part. Let's force these elected reps to back off hate and discrimination in its multivariate ugliness. They don't whisper anymore. They just go out and say it, whether it's anti-Semitism or racism or it's against LGBTQ people. They're out there doing it. Let's not have a food insecure or lodging insecure or health insecure or education insecure or poverty insecure citizens. You know, when we say food insecure, why don't we say hunger? When we say lodging, why don't we say homeless? And health insurance, why don't we say we're going to take care of the sick? Because we're not. And education, what are our standards? You know, give access to broad bandwidth, and it goes on and on. Poverty, let's not decry helping a family get on, particularly when the nation has decided we don't care how many children we have and under what circumstances they're born or released into the world with or without support by adults. Let's demand the truth in all cases. Wouldn't that be refreshing? And that is to say, there has been this sneaking notion that if I'm not under oath, I can lie. Not so. That's not acceptable. And when people do like that, they should be cashiered right away. They should be driven from office. Often, if they say these things in such a way in a public document, which is itself a crime, we should prosecute them for it. Force them to pay for misleading the nation because we rely on the truth of what is said. Let's restore the rights the Supreme Court has cashiered. And if we can't do it by changing the court, and we should try, then we should demand that Congress pass the legislation to make this nation a civilized nation. And by that definition, I mean we are measured by how we treat our own. And right now, I don't know if we get a B or a C. You know, we make excuses for not doing things that we need to do for the people that we claim to represent. And it's just not acceptable. We are better than the membrane of brutal and hateful Republican leaders containing the once grand party and holding prisoner all those Republicans who have a more enlightened view, even in their differences with others, about how we should govern the nation. And it's just not acceptable when the Republican Party is hell-bent on destroying this democracy. Our work was well begun with the election of 2020, the election of Biden, and running out of town as best we could, Trump. And the midterms of 2022, yes, we did not shift it dramatically toward a trust in the Democrats, but we did stop the onslaught of Republican lies and mismanagement and small thinking and unequal thinking and autocratic thinking. And so now we have to close the deal between now and 2024. And we're going to have to do what we did before. We, the people, have to be on the phone. We have to be sending checks to those elected officials or those who would run for office who will foster both making and accounting for what's gone on and governing the nation once again. So I want to thank you for paying attention to my thoughts. I hope you find them informative. I hope maybe you even agree with them. And I say this today on the New Year's Eve day because it begins tomorrow. And people say, you know, like they're leaving behind. We have that baggage coming from this year and going forward. We can't get rid of that just by a wish and a prayer. We have to work at it. And we work at it by, you know, buttoning people at the water cooler or sending them a note or inviting them to a public event or making contributions, all the various ways that we make a difference. And do not give a free pass to our elected officials when they try to do it the easier way instead of doing what is absolutely necessary by adopting the standards of the government that was first established but not realized when we had a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution. We have to do the hard work if we're going to satisfy what Benjamin Franklin said. You have a republic if you can keep it. Right now it's at risk. We have to work on that. So all the best in the new year. I look forward to talking to you and listening to what you have to say in agreement or disagreement with what I have to say. All the best. Bye-bye.